So I called this class the Winter Soldier, just because, has anyone seen Captain America Civil War with the Winter Soldier? Hopefully, because it'd be really dumb otherwise. And so the idea is I can say like 3 phrases to all of you and make you unstoppable killing machines. And that's the idea of this class, is I'm not really going to show any techniques, really. I'm going to say 3 phrases that all of you have in you, and you're all going to become horrible monsters. Like, that's the idea of the Winter Soldier. And the basis of it is, so I was watching Preet's class last night, the Neon Belly class, and there's quite a few things that he was saying in that, and I was like, he's stolen my ideas. Funny. I hope he sees it on video. Preet stole my ideas. So this is taken from Charles, it's taken from Christian, and it's taken from Preet. Just classes they've done over the years that I've kind of like, I like those bits, and just find maybe a different way of explaining them. So the Winter Soldier. When it comes to competition and MMA and various other things, people say, Jiu-jitsu doesn't seem to make much sense in like a self-defense MMA kind of way. I'd argue and say that Jiu-jitsu makes no sense. Competitive Jiu-jitsu, MMA and self-defense have a lot more in common than Jiu-jitsu. Like, that's like an outlying weird thing now. Like, how you roll in the gym is very different to how you roll in competition, really. Especially like IB, JJF. And I'm not sure of the veracity, but it kind of makes sense to me in that if you look at the point system, so anytime you've competed, any of you who have competed and you've like lost on points, and you say, I would have won, but I lost on points. To my knowledge, the points are like a metaphor for strikes. I know close guard's a bit of an outlier because you can obviously punch from inside the close guard. But what do you think? So you get 2 points for taking someone into the world of jiu-jitsu, but you get 3 points for getting past their legs because you can still get up kicked and stuff like that. That's why that's worth more than just taking someone down. And then all the points you really score are based on being on top. And I'm pretty sure it was Dan or someone said that, no points for side control because you can't really give someone a leathering from there. But you get more from Neon Belly and Mount, as in 30 years ago when they were first figuring out what the point system was and MMA was in its infancy, that kind of made sense. And so the only way of really scoring points was being on top, because that's where you had dominant position to like lay leather on someone. And so it was almost a way of saying that in a competition, like, okay, if you didn't win a sub didn't happen, who won on points? Because then you could look at, well, who got more hits delivered to him in a way, if that makes sense. And so how we roll in the gym then is actually quite different to how we roll in competition. And this is then the first part of the Winter Soldier. I'm going to play a game. I think I stole this from Free. It might have been Charles. Can I borrow you, James? What are you going to do to sit down? On your ass at me. Double guard for us. Yeah. And you're going to interlock legs like this and hold each other's ankles. Has anyone played this game before from Free? Or Charles? Whoever did it. No, have you done something? No. Oh, nice. Take this back to Rog. Shout out to Blue Dog. So what you're going to do is you hold on to each other's ankles and you have a race to see who can stand up first. So it's a game. I'm not going to show the game, because when we give it away. But you're going to hold each other's ankles and then, obviously you've got to let go of someone's ankles to stand up. And he's got to do the same to me. But you're going to have a race to see who can stand up first. Make sense? Off you go. So there is a way that actually works. It's like a carnival trick where there is a way to win. I can do it slowly. Okay, so you got one in, one out. So instead of just being brute strength and not knowing what the hell's happening, the way you win in this game is being able to control someone's bottom leg while freeing your own. So if I go to the side with James, I can let go of this leg here. I don't have to have it anymore because he can't stand up. And all I have to do now is just free my bottom leg. So I've got his bottom leg, so if we went for a race now, I will win. Right? So when it comes to getting up, so I did a swoop theory class a few years ago in Iceland. If you imagine this is me on the bottom, my little legs pointing upright, and this is you on top, you've got little legs pointing down. A sweep is the one doing this, where we go to here, and then we go to here. So we are reversing the situation. So whoever's on bottom, goes on top, whoever's on top, goes on bottom, okay? And there's a moment where we're both like this, okay? And this is like the critical moment, and this is essentially what hip heisting is in wrestling and technical get-ups, is as soon as I'm here, my ability to stand up is based on my bottom leg. And Preet said this last night, is if someone has my top leg, so James just holds onto this leg here, I can still stand up. But if he holds onto my bottom leg, I can't. Until I change it to my top leg, right? And so in every situation where a sweep has happened and we're both lying like this, the person who's doing the sweep has to get over their bottom leg. The person who is on top has to be thrown via their bottom leg, okay? So it's whoever races for that bottom leg first. And so if James hits me with just like a regular kind of like butterfly sweep here, boom, right. His ability to get up is based on if he can free his bottom leg at this point in time. So if I hold on to it, if he tries to now follow me up, I'll win, right? Same thing is that if he sweeps me and then maintains control of my bottom leg, picks it up or like hooks it or whatever, I can't now reverse and he wins. So that midpoint there, where we're both lying on the floor, is one of the most critical times. And this is where I'm starting to say, like, it's amazing how much gym jiu-jitsu will ruin you because you'll accept guard. All you have to do is pull your bottom leg out and you kill sweeps instantly. As long as I keep my hips facing the floor, as long as I keep my groin facing the ground, I am very difficult to sweep. So next thing you're gonna try, like, pick a super basic sweep, I don't know, scissor sweep or butterfly sweep. And you're going to start from like level 1, they're going to do a very nice basic sweep on you, and you're going to work up to like as high as you need to get it. And all you're going to do is the second that you land, you're going to plant your foot, you're going to take your bottom leg out, and you're going to hip heist. Simple as that, basic wrestling. Okay, so I'm not moving back in towards them, over my top leg, I'm moving away from them. Okay, freeing that bottom leg. So as soon as he hits me with a single sweep, nice and basic, I free my bottom leg. I can leave it either super early, super late, so I can wait until my ass hits the floor, for example. So if he hits me and my ass hits the floor, I still have opportunity. Do that. And we're going to build up on it. So he's going to start level 1, and we're going to go all the way to, so then he'll go up to level 2, and I go a bit harder on me. We'll go to level 3. We'll go to level 4. And we'll go to level 5. And all of a sudden you think, how many times have you been swept and just accepted it because you thought guard was okay? And then you do this in the gym, you just accept guard, and then you go into competition, you have points scored against you because you don't train how you compete. You don't try and stay upright. We all know that the only way of scoring points is being on top, or going from bottom to top. You don't score points from the bottom. So why are you letting people get on top in regular training? Does that make sense? And so, it's what I mean by the witness soldier. As in, all I've said to you is like, keep your hips square to the ground. Comrade. And then you go away, and you become more difficult to sweep. We did it in my gym one night, where I had an inkling, let's say I want to see what happens. And we did one night of situational sparring, everyone was in guard. And I said, right, whoever scores points first, so if the person on top passes, they win. If the person on bottom gets a sweep, they win. Or if a submission happens. The first night we did it, it was pretty normal across the board, people getting sweeps, people getting passes, etc. Then I said at the end of the following session, right, you will keep your hips square to the ground at all times. The following day we had about 100 rounds of situational sparring, and I asked at the end, how many sweeps did people get? 3. Just because I said, do not let your ass turn to the ground. That was enough. And like, there's a brilliant video of Chris House at one of the Globetrotters camps, I think it might have been Maine, a few years ago, where it says the 4 rules of Jiu-Jitsu. Be the person on top, win on top, stay on top. If you have a guard, they shall not pass. Rule number 4, do not forget rule number 1, because of how fun rule number 3 is. because we love playing guard. And we forget being on top is more important. So like, it's basically, you know, hearing that 5 years ago and then suddenly realizing 5 years later going, oh, it makes sense now. So just try that. Is it 1 to 10? Just like, if you want to try it on your own first, like Tree said last night, you know, almost like shadow boxing, square. That's it. And then with either a scissor sweep or a butterfly sweep, just heist your way out of it repeatedly. And see how long it actually takes that person to hit a sweep on you. 1 to 10. Off you go. Does that make sense? Whee! I didn't really show you anything. I said keep your hips square to the floor. And how much harder was it now to sweep people? Yeah, it's a lot harder. And so you think how many times you've... And so we did this experiment, and I watched the results, and I said to everyone at the end of the class, right, from here on out, you know, hip heist if you want, but if you just want to play guard sometimes, that's okay too. I then went to bed that night, and I had nightmares. What a terrible thing to say to someone. Because it's a false positive then. As if you just let yourself accept guard when you're being swept, that person thinks their sweeps are better than they are. And then you come across someone who wrestles, or even does rugby, and all of a sudden, you can't sweep that person, because all they know is about being on top. And because you're training with people who just accept being on bottom, you think you're better than you are. So I said to everyone there, like, no, screw it. Like, you all heist now. Like, none of you accept guard. You fight to be on top if you're on top. Because I don't want to have a gym full of false positives, where people think their sweeps are better than they are. Then they come across someone who just essentially does what you just did. Just pulls their hips square to the ground again. And all of a sudden their sweeps die on arrival. Does that make sense? And it was quite like quite a sad moment then, because everyone was like, this is going to be really hard. I was like, yeah, good. Like, this is going to suck for the next 6 months. No one's going to get any sweeps. But after 6 months, we're all going to be better. So we're all going to have superior sweeps for training with people who've got better defense, which is essentially the same as Preet's been saying for these past 5 years. Is if you think your attacks are better than they are because you're training against someone who isn't trying with a good defense. Like, it's easy to hit someone in the face if their hands are by their sides. And it's the exact same here. It's easy to hit a sweep on someone who likes playing on their back. Until you come across people who don't like playing on their back. And so the next part that came out of it is that every sweep we were then hitting, it was a race to heist, because the person on the bottom was then heisting. Because as soon as you generate any space, I want to get my bottom leg out. If I know that James is going to like keep square to the ground, so if I hit like a regular butterfly sweep on James again, here, and I know he's going to heist, I heist as well. And he gets into wrestling, essentially. Now we're both upright. Now it's whoever can wrestle the other person down. And so it became a race to heist. And that essentially happened with every sweep. So pick a sweep at random.
Okay.
I did want me standing or kneeling.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pick a different sweep. We've done that one.
Okay.
Go for like a single leg X sweep or something. Yeah, exactly the same. He's trying to make me roll onto my bottom leg. So as soon as I hit it, he gets some sweep, and I'll change. Bottom leg. Now he's got heist himself to try and get out. And that's a game. Does that make sense? So pretty much every sweep requires this. You roll onto your bottom leg, they free their bottom leg, and that's how they get up. And so that kind of critical moment here is where you should be training. That's where you should be having this really fun race to see who can pull their bottom leg out first. Does that make sense? And so, same thing again, like I want you to all just pick a random sweep, or pick a bunch of sweeps. Figure out how the heist would work, how you'd free your bottom leg and get yourself back up, or change bottom legs, like you saw there. I was being swept over this one. Sit me with this single leg. Cool, I ain't gonna be able to get up now. He's got my bottom leg. Can't free myself. And I might win, because he needs this to get up. Try and get on top. I win. Does that make sense? Wait, come on. Yeah, so pick random sweeps. I want to see what happens, and we can like share afterwards. Off you go. Did it work? No work? Guess what? No work?
Mixed.
Mixed reviews.
Mixed.
Okay. Fun?
Well, like, if we, you know how like when we did the butterfly one, we could let ourselves almost be
Yeah.
sort of here and then do it.
So show me what you got mixed reviews for. This time
Well, it's
period.
fine. You just have to like stop the class before you even started this.
Yeah. Well, that's why a lot of sweeps work. So that's how Wim's mirroring principle works.
Yeah.
You're essentially heisting really early so they can't roll you over your bottom leg. As in, so say if you go for the butterfly sweep again, please, James.
Oh, sorry, with me or?
No, actually, Wim's. Just hit one on me. Time.
Yep.
So the idea of Wim's mirroring principle was that, so if you imagine a mirror between us here, whichever way he faces, I do the exact same. And essentially, I'm heisting him. So if he goes to sweep me this way, I look the same way. Because now he can't roll me over. And so then it comes back to the middle, we look at each other. Same with like in a like a half guard kind of, like if he wants to roll me over from half guard, like in an old school kind of sweep, like just bully me over. Here, now he's currently facing this way, so I look the same way, so you can't hit it. And then if suddenly he tries to hit a plan B and roll me backwards, I look that way as well. And that's Wim's mirror. Essentially, he's made really early heisting to try and kill sweeps. But it's kind of like a universal, as in you have to be able to pull your bottom leg free if you want to go on top. Same with the bottom arm as well. Like you have to pull your bottom arm free to be able to roll over your body. So anyone who was here for Preet's Neon Belly class last night?
Yeah.
A few. That's what he was doing. Like that's kind of like the crux moment of his class, as in when he was kicking people in the ass. So we hit him Neon Belly, and he was going to Baby Bridge, and then he was doing the whole kicking here, and then he was freeing his bottom leg. Like, as soon as you kind of created this motion here, he was pulling himself free. That was kind of like the crux moment, is that he was creating space to hip heist. So as soon as like that person created that kind of Neon Belly, here, he was creating a little bump, sending this way, now he's got his space, with his legs straight. Come on. But he had killed my heist by like grabbing my arm or something. Just pull it that way. I can't heist because he's pulling my bottom arm through. Does that make sense? Hey, another one. If anyone did take up that drinking game idea, I'm so sorry. The next part then is, this is stolen from Christian. I think he said this way before we had Globetrotters in action, so it's mine now. And this is going to sound profoundly stupid. If I'd said this online or in a phone conversation to you, you would rightfully get rid of me. Whoever's hips are highest is the person on top. That sounds profoundly stupid and obvious. Whoever is on top is on top. Yeah, stupid, I know. But it's amazing how often you will let your hips drop below another person's, and you will accept being on the bottom. And we had a fun roll just before, because you asked like, "What are you doing today?" And I didn't explain it. I just thought I'd piss her off. And so any situation, whoever's hips end up highest first is going to win that exchange, because they end up on top. So if you hit this butterfly sweep again, as long as I can keep my hips, like imagine like this is the x-axis and that's the y-axis, whoever's hips are higher against the y-axis is the person who's eventually going to win. So if he hits me with a sweep or anything like that, as long as I can keep my hips above here, so try and get up. Try and get up. As long as I keep my hips higher in every way, I will win. It sounds so stupid. Like, be on top, keep your hips higher. But it's amazing how often you will let your hips just drop below. And that's the exact same when I'm heisting then. So that's going to be the next step, is that if I hit a butterfly sweep, even if he's heisted really well, if I just get my hips high, I will win. So as soon as I can get my feet squared to the ground, just get my hips above his, I'll be able to bully him over. And no matter what happens, as long as I keep my hips higher, I will win that exchange. And that was the other part of Preet's class last night when we were doing the turtle thing. Mm-hmm. Is that you had hold of, you'd come up and done the sweep, and you had hold of the back of my leg. As long as I can keep my hips above his in every way to try and bully me over. Square to the floor. He accepted guard. What the hell? You could have stayed up. You just fight to keep your hips higher. Every jiu-jitsu exchange should be like this. But how much does this look like actual competitive jiu-jitsu? Compared to gym jiu-jitsu? Completely different, isn't it? And all I've said is keep your hips fucking high. Man, that's swear word. And so, just feel that. Just again with those sweeps, like almost like as soon as you get to like the halfway point. So like any sweep you want. So maybe if I hit like a scissor sweep, for example. As soon as this ass hits the floor, so let your ass hit the floor. Okay, we're now going to have a race to see whose hips get highest first. Does that make sense? So you go 3, 2, 1, go. My hips got higher first. Really, really obvious basic jiu-jitsu. Does that make sense? So get to a halfway point in the sweep, then go 3, 2, 1, race to go see whose hips get highest first. Off you go. Did that work? But I haven't shown you anything. That's what I mean by the Winter Soldier. All I've said is like 2 phrases right now. And even from like how you were at the beginning to how you are now, it's a lot more violent. Everyone's just wrestling each other. I'm pretty sure that's all I saw in the middle was just you two just like jump into your feet and try and bully each other down. But how much of that do you actually do on a normal basis? Do you just accept guard? Exactly. But that's how you lose points in competition, is that you accept guard. You just train yourself to accept guard all the time, and then you have points scored against you.
But what if I do some sort of mind game? I mean, I know now that he's going to jump up, so he's going to open his legs, which means that I will have an easier time getting into his legs.
The way of dealing with legs, it's not black and white, very, very grey. Whoever's in the middle is going to win the leg lock exchange. So it's almost like, okay, this is a sidetrack. There's a general formula for figuring out all the jiu-jitsu. You can pretty much just create this equation and then it will just figure everything out. So you have 3 kind of avenues for submission. You have chokes, arm locks, and leg locks, by and large. Whoever's on the outside of the forward-facing exchange is usually the person who's going to do the upper body attack. So if you imagine if I've got closed guard, I'm going to do guillotines, arm bars, triangles. I mean, there's always outlying things that you can, like if you're in a butterfly, you can go for like a violin, arm bar, and stuff like that. So whoever's on the inside is going to do leg locks. Whoever's on the outside is going to do upper body attacks. Yeah. So if I'm in butterfly, for example, I can do leg entries all day long. And there's a chance, like you saw in ADCC, of people just flying over the top of butterfly and going for arm bars because they were on the outside. But if I'm in closed guard, that means I can go for triangles, guillotines, kimuras, arm bars, and the other person can leg lock me because they're on the inside. Because in every exchange you have an inside party and an outside party. That's what makes half guard so fun, is because it's the Wild West. In that, because everything is to play for. If we're in half guard, I'll stop again. So if I'm in butterfly, I can go for legs, and there's a chance he could go flying over the top, guillotine and arm bars and all that kind of cool stuff. If I'm on the outside, I've got guillotines, kimuras, but he could go for leg locks on me. As soon as we go into half guard, we have one of each. So I have an inside leg, he has an inside leg. I have an outside leg, he has an outside leg. So I can still go for platters and kimuras and guillotines and a lot of those cool things, but at the same time I can also go hunting underneath and go for leg locks. Same as he could go for kimuras on me, and he can also go flying for heel hooks. It is a Wild West position. Like if you want to play half guard, it's because you want to play like everything. Everything's to play for, let's go for it. Guns in the air. And so if that's like the beginning, if that's like the main consideration begin, am I inside or am I outside? And at the other end is, am I hitting am I hitting chokes and arm bars or leg locks? All that happens in the middle is hand fighting. But every setup you've ever seen for anything ever is just a variation of hand fighting that happened once for that person, that coach. That coach, once upon a time, hit this certain hand fighting setup and got a triangle. Right? But the way I liken it to is like, imagine if I was to fill this room with smoke. If I was to shine a laser pen from that wall to that wall, I'm going to hit a certain combination of molecules in chaos. That's the setup in Jiu-Jitsu, is you're waiting for chaos to align to go from inside or outside to your eventual submission. But if you try and replicate that setup, you're trying to replicate chaos. You're trying to realign those same particles. And so that's why when I hear people say, like, you know, if you go for a setup and it messes up halfway, you don't carry on. Well, that sounds awfully stupid because you're trying to realign particles of chaos. Why not just know how your beginning relates to your end? Am I inside or outside? Am I going for upper body or lower body? And just hand fight your way there. Make sense? And so you can pretty much apply that to, you can pretty much write down a submission and then guillotine and go, right, am I inside or outside? Well, I need to be in an outside base position. Right, I just need to hand fight my way to a guillotine. And then that's how you train, because then you just go through various levels of resistance to get to your guillotine. Now you have infinite numbers of selves. It's like when I give like private lessons to people back home, they'll say to, I'll ask them, you know, what kind of submissions do you like playing? Oh, I like playing leg locks. I like leg locks, they intrigue me. Cool. What kind of like guards do you like to play? Closed guard. Well, that's gonna be hard. Right? That automatically like negates your ability to go for leg locks. Now some of Danaher's guys used to pull mount crazily. There's a lie there. Just go like this. And you think, why the hell are they doing that? It's because they're on the inside. The other person's on the outside. The other person's going to go for upper body attacks, arm bars, triangles, guillotines maybe, and they're automatically putting themselves into a situation where they can go for leg locks. That makes sense? So if you like playing on the inside and like going for leg locks, put yourself in more inside based positions and just hand fight your way to it. And that's almost, put a pin in that, we're going to come back to it. So yeah, going back to the high hips scenario. Again, when you get into a competition, again, it's amazing how much you just allow yourself to get rotated and let your hips drop. But that's when you lose. Now you're back in guard again. Now you're carrying that other person. When you could have easily stopped them, you could have easily just pulled your bottom leg free and just stayed higher than they are. And you will have an opportunity to win. And this is very, very basic wrestling. But if you are going to stand up, know how to do it safely. Again, stolen from Charles. He decided to piss off a bunch of Cubans. Every attack in wrestling is going to happen on my front side. Okay, arm drags, single legs, double legs, all happen along here. Nothing happens back here. And so if I open my front door, I'm exposed to everything. So you don't have to be a good wrestler to know that I just keep my front door closed. Like I can stuff most things. I'm not going to be able to attack, but I'm not going to get taken down as violently all the time. And I've got an opportunity to get back out again. So, since you guys are playing wrestling, can I borrow you, please? If I'm here, just with my front door closed, and he goes for like whatever attack he wants. Great fun, that. Exactly. Why the fuck would I do this? Like, then he is going to bully me. So if you are going to stand up, just keep your fucking front arm down. You'll survive a lot longer. Like, you at least will get to stuff the other person out. Does that make sense? Like, there's no arm drag here, like down here. There's no Russian tie-up unless my arm's up here. There's no leg to go for if I'm just covering the door. So if you are going to play this whole game of like heisting and just getting up, just make sure as you get up, your front side, down. Which, oddly enough, it's just Running Man. It's the same shit every day. So, go feel that. That's a lot of fun. just keep your front door closed and see how much annoying wrestling becomes. Like, you actually have to work a lot harder. And if someone walks at me with their front arm open like this, it's like Christmas. I have a lot of fun today. Go explore it. Keep your front arm down. Make sense? As I wasn't mainly part of the class, so I thought it was quite a neat idea to just bring in. Does that make sense? Feel more difficult? Keep the front arm down. It's a lot harder to get takedowns. Like, if someone walks. So the front arm here is important, not opening it up. Like, that's why I like to fight with my back arm, because you can have that. There's nothing there. Like, you ain't gonna drag it. It's too far away. If I open my front arm, everything goes wrong. That's why if I ever see someone wrestling, they just walk at me. Like, unless they change arms all the time, it's going to be really bad. So they're here, and all of a sudden this changes. Terrible. If I see someone just walking at me like this, like zombie style, like it's Christmas. Like, they've given me the front door to smack them. Last part of the Winter Soldier. Hand fight. I said it just, and I'll say it again. Whoever wins the hand fighting exchange gets to do their submission. And like, oddly enough, because I wanted to be fresh for this class, I didn't drink last night. And Mr. Danaher did put up a post about hand fighting. I was like, stop reading my mind, John. You stole my class ideas. Just quiet screaming in bed. Whoever wins a hand fight is going to get their submission and get their attack or get their clinch or whatever. So, if I was to say to you, if you have a home and you have an intruder alarm, when would you like your intruder alarm to go off? When someone comes over your lawn or when they're in your living room?
Straight away.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so that is my hand fighting. So where I can reach is where I should start hand fighting. This is my lawn. If you're in this distance on me and I haven't started hand fighting you yet, you're already in a clinch distance. You have to get past my hands to be able to get in a clinch and do the technique you want to do. Right? And so how early you hand fight will dictate how successful you are in jiu-jitsu and how early and how often you get submitted, essentially. And again, I'm not sure the complete veracity, but I'm mostly sure you cannot do this in wrestling. You cannot interlock fingers with the other person. The reason being isn't because you're going to break each other's fingers. It'd be cool if you could. But it's because you can't do anything. It kills the sport. Like, who is the low? You just started jiu-jitsu.
Pretty much, yeah.
How long have you been training for?
This will be my 4th session. No, 5th. 5th.
Oh, no. Alright, we're going to play guard. I'm going to try and pass your guard.
Fuck, right.
You're going to win.
You reckon?
Yeah, got it. So, guard? Okay, so just to make sure I know how to pass a guard still. Okay, let's spar. Let's see if I can pass your guard. Okay, go. Yeah, I can still do it. That would look so stupid if I didn't. Okay, cool. Right, we're going to interlock fingers. Romantic. Okay, so I've been doing jiu-jitsu now for 14 years. Let's see if I can pass. 14 years versus
5 sessions.
5 sessions. I want to see if I can pass your guard.
Let's get in.
Let's go. I can't. Like 14 years, 4 sessions, 5 sessions, and he won. Exactly. Thank you. That was awesome. Just do that to everyone. The rest of the camp. Because he was winning the hand fighting exchange. I couldn't have my hands, and because I couldn't have my hands, I wasn't able to do anything. And so you think how often you've had your guard passed, where anything bad happened to you. It's just because you lost a hand fighting exchange, because you let them have their hands. If I just lock up your hands, you ain't passing. He won. His guard retention just exploded. I couldn't, a black belt couldn't pass his guard. Put that on Tinder, put on everything. That's on your CV from now on in. Impassable guard. So yeah, try it. So all I do is just feel that, see if that wasn't an outlier. Okay? So interlock fingers with the other person, see if you can pass that guard. Off you go. Again, it's not something. I'm not teaching you. None of you are going to leave here today and just go do this with another person. That's not. I've taught nothing today. I've shown 0 techniques. That's what I said at the beginning. I'm going to say 3 phrases and turn you into unstoppable killing machines. I'm going to say, keep your hips higher, heist your hips all the time, and hand fight. By saying those 3 things, you are now more difficult to deal with. Because you probably wouldn't do them before. So when it comes to hand fighting then, if that's level 100, so perfect that it has to be banned, why aren't we aspiring to be level 99? As good as doing this, but not this. Because that's essentially who's going to win the exchange then. If I can do something as good as this, but not this, I'll win every exchange. Like you just saw. Like if he could do something as good as this with me, and every time he played guard, no one would ever pass his guard ever again. Essentially. And so that's what we should be aspiring to. The problem is, it's boring as fuck. Like, you've all come here for an hour, and even 5 minutes of me saying hand fight more, you all want to leave. Like, if I was just saying, right, for the last 10 minutes, we're just going to do hand fighting drills, you're like, ah. But that's what separates us all out. Whoever wins the hand fighting exchange. Like I said earlier, when it came to the filling the room with smoke and choking us all out. Every combination you've ever seen for a setup is just a combination of particles and smoke, which is just a hand fight that Coach once did. These techniques weren't handed down by some deity 100 years ago on a stone tablet to the Gracie family and goes, here are all the setups you'll ever need. And then they went and spread Jiu-jitsu to the masses. They are setups from hand fighting that someone once did. They once hit a triangle off the inside of someone, and that's when they then hit that triangle. And then they go, oh wow, I hit a triangle by doing this to someone. And then we all drill it verbatim and try and replicate chaos. But if you know where you want to be and how it relates to the beginning, is it inside or outside, whoever's got the better hand fighting will get to that end. If you've got shite hand fighting, you aren't going to get anything, essentially. But again, the problem is it's boring as hell. We come to jiu-jitsu because we want to learn techniques. But this is what's going to make you better. And so, as horrible as it's going to sound, you're going to have to go up to your coach as well and say, Coach, I want to do an hour of hand fighting. I want the gym to hate me. But that's, again, how I think we should train jiu-jitsu then, is that when we're doing setups or drilling submissions or whatever, start with very compliant hand fighting, level 1, and then have your partner build up the hand fighting against you, like level 2, level 3, level 4. Because then they're getting better hand fighting by side effect, they're not just a grappling dummy, and you're getting better hand fighting from the bottom, finding different ways of getting to your end product, be it inside or outside to upper body or lower body. Does that make sense? There's an infinite number of ways to it, and just by doing that level of training, so like, say for example, if James is going to go for triangles, so level 1, you just be able to punch my hand through and go for a triangle. And then level 2, I put a bit of hand fighting in. He's going to try and hit that same triangle. And then level 3, I put the hand fighting a little bit more. And then level 4, we've got the hand fighting again. There's an infinite number of setups he's doing there, but I'm giving them increased resistance every single time. And I'm getting better hand fighting from it. I'm an engaged partner. Does that make sense? Any questions on that for the last 2 minutes? Has it made sense? Really?
So one of the things you notice when you was the wrestling, keeping everything tucked in, obviously we've kind of seen the collar tie. So what you're saying is that as soon as they move into that space, that's when you should be straight away.
So, I say there's very, very basic understanding of wrestling about keeping the front door closed. There's other outline bits. Whoever controls the centre line usually gets the win as well. So I can't open up the front door as long as I control the middle. For example, if I go for a collar tie here, I'm winning because I'm on the center line. If you suddenly get your arm on the inside and get your collar tie instead, with that same arm, you're not winning.
Okay.
No difference.
Yeah.
I win. You win. It's Thai boxing. Like, whoever's got the center line on Thai boxing wins. Like, if I have my hands against your shoulders here, and I just shoot, so I win. If you put your hands on the inside of my shoulders, now shoot, you win. So whoever controls that middle, got the takedown. But if I just put my two people hands on the inside of my shoulders again, and I put my head there, go for a takedown, I win. Because I was in the middle. So you can't open up the front door. That is like going a bit deeper into it. This idea of the set line and opening up the front door, but just in general, just as you're standing up. So one of the side effects of doing this is I had to cancel my wrestling class, just because normal wrestling involves distance, coming in from a distance, doing a shot, and then getting your takedown. But with this, because you're standing up already clinched, like it blurs the line between jiu-jitsu and wrestling now, because we're going from here to here. And they're already on my leg, so I already have to know how to like spawn and kill that clinch instantly. So it's not just normal wrestling anymore. It's because normally you have like a wrestling class where you do this kind of thing first, then we drop to the ground, and then we do the jiu-jitsu thing. But as soon as you put hip heisting and high hips in there, that line between the two gets really blurred, and like wrestling just becomes part of jiu-jitsu again. You can't really separate them out. Any other questions?
When you say we should do more hand fighting, is there more to that advice? Like how?
2-on-1s. 2-on-1s usually help. Imagine you always assume the other person is stronger and faster than you are. And if you're getting older as well, they definitely are. And so I need to just make sure that I've got a advantage. I want both my hands on one of your hands. That's just gonna up my chances of winning that exchange. And usually, especially if you're on the bottom and you're hand fighting 2-on-1s, they're probably going to be a little less pleased to use their other hand, because that's kind of like in the bank in case you mess with their balance. So Ryan Hall said this years ago. I'll paraphrase it a little bit. Is that when we're fighting each other, our main concern is each other, and in the background is our breathing and our balance. We're not thinking about those until they are fucked with. Like no matter how good you are, right? White belt, black belt, red belt. If I push you over, you're going to do this. It doesn't matter. If I say to you, if you put your hand on the floor, I'm going to shoot you in the head, right? And I suddenly push you, you'll still do this. Doesn't matter who you are. The only difference between a white belt and a black belt is a white belt's going to go, and a black belt's going to go like that. Same reaction is a lot quicker. But everyone has to adjust their balance. So if I mess with your balance all the time, you're always going to be putting your hand out. You can't avoid it. Unless you just suddenly just land on your head. Right? It's a natural human instinct. Same with like, if you mess with someone's breathing, like you shouldn't do this. But if you smother someone, it's amazing how much their jiu-jitsu goes out the window. Like if I suddenly go, everything because suddenly opens up and I choke them. Because I messed with your breathing. Like those two things, if you get messed with, like it completely wrecks any idea of like normal jiu-jitsu. Even my coach, I guess the third one's pain. My coach said to me when I first started doing submission wrestling, jiu-jitsu attracts smart people. How do you stop a smart person from thinking? Hurt them. Yes, coach. Like, if you drive your knee through someone's head, like they're not going to like think clearly for a while. Not just their head, I guess. Yeah.
With the topic of hip height, it really makes sense with all the stuff you show. When you compare or relate it to head height in certain situations, would you see a hierarchy or try to do both at the same time? Because I didn't think it through, but does it cancel it out?
Yeah, I think high hips, but I guess spine would come into that, because I know Christian does the class. He's gone. Where keep your hair above your ass. Kind of thing, which again, like, I think we're both trying to roughly say the same thing, as in, if your head ends up underneath your ass, then you're probably going to get rolled over. But at the same time, like, that person can only finish that sweep the second their hips go higher. Like the amount of times, I think it might have been Ben Askren or something like that, where they do like headstands in wrestling to keep their hips higher and they still don't go onto their backs. Like, so that kind of like defeats that logic. But every sweep and every takedown, everything involving jiu-jitsu, wrestling and judo ends with my hips above yours. Like no matter where your head was, if your hips are below mine, I've won. So I think keep your head low probably makes you more susceptible to getting rolled, but it isn't like the end product. As long as you can't keep your hips higher, I think you'll win these exchanges.
So you think more about like in the transitional periods of the roll, but I think about like octopus guard, like cat dog positions and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that. There's like no hip height battle really, but more like a head height battle.
Is that when the sweep's happening, or just as
In the beginning. So,
Yeah.
So maybe that's a distinction.
Yeah. We've run out of time. Has that been okay? Has it made sense? The Winter Soldier? Because everyone's coming up to me and saying, "What the fuck is your class about?" Even Preet apparently this one was like, "I don't know what the fuck he's doing." I didn't know if it was stolen from him anyway. So yeah, obviously a few people weren't here in this class. It's quite quiet. Play with it. They have no idea what's happening, and so an idea for like learning jiu-jitsu in general. Pick the weakest person in the room to learn it on. No, okay. So if I was to say to you, right, say you do the average of 3 classes a week. Say you learn 3 techniques per class. Let's say they're 9 techniques a week. You know, that's quite a lot, but sure. 9 selves or techniques in a week. Over the space of a year, let's say, conservatively, you even do just 400 techniques in a year. 300 even. Let's be super conservative. Out of those 300 techniques you've done over that year, how many do you remember?
1
Should we say 10%? 30? Out of that 30, how much do you assimilate into your game?
0.5.
It's how much of a fucking waste was that? Yeah, it's stupid. Like we're training really wrong if we're like barely hitting like 1% of what we've learned in a year. Okay, that's messed up numbers and stuff. I'm really like trying to make a silly point out of it. But there's a small element of truth to that. As in, it's amazing how much you'll forget, and there's 2 reasons for that. Is A, your ego. Like, as much as it's written on every gym door in the world, leave your ego here. You won't try and win unless you have an ego. Like that's why you try and win in jiu-jitsu, because your ego said, "I want to win this exchange." We all have it. It's just, I think the word should be, "Don't be an asshole." Like, keep your ego. Don't be an asshole. And so what will happen is whenever you learn a new technique, you usually train with your peers. You usually try and use it against someone who is normally as good as you, your friends, etc. And that means that then you'll try this new technique, it won't work, and you revert back to your normal game. And that technique gets thrown away. It didn't work, couldn't get to use it against this person. Fuck it, I'm going back to what I normally do. Maybe eventually you pull off one of those techniques and go, "Oh shit, it works," and it becomes part of your game. But by and large, we've all got egos, we all abandon stuff. It's what makes blue belt terrible. Legit, blue belt's a nightmare belt. Because the second you get a blue belt, you have a little bit of that ego, and the target's now on your back. And you're like, I am never letting a white belt touch me again. Even though I was only a white belt last week, fuck them all. Like, low lights. And because of that, we then abandon so much. Blue belts are so much fun to play with. Because what they're good at, they're normally quite good at. But when you take them out of their game, they die. They have no idea what the fuck is happening. And that is because of this problem. And so the way to get around it is beat up white belts. As in, every time I pick up a new technique, I don't go use it against my brown belts. Because they will pick 1,000 holes in what I'm trying. And I'll go, fuck it, abandon it, go back to my A game. But if I go use a new technique against a day 1 white belt, some new person walks in and goes, "Hey, new guy, come here. I've got something to try on you." Our retention rate's terrible. I'll use it against them, and they'll maybe find 1 hole in what I'm doing. Oh, I haven't thought about that. I'll then get against my 1 stripe, 2 stripe, whatever white belts. I'll work my way back up, and I'll solve those problems as I go until I get back to my brown belts. Does that make sense? And so anything you've done today out of this task, you just suddenly think, cool, I'm going to stand up on everyone today, and you're going to get dicked into the ground. That's a problem, because then you won't do it again. You lose, your ego will say, that hurt, and it goes in that big pile of things you'll do later. Okay? So, don't get disheartened if you do get thrown around. There's 1,000 holes in what you've just learned. Just go do it against him. He has no idea what's happening. He can't stop it. But don't avoid jiu-jitsu. You probably absorb a lot more. Thank you. I'm eating into your lunchtime. If I'll catch you for a roll, I'm really sore from snowboarding still. So if I cry during a roll, I'm okay. Just carry on. Thank you.
Thank you.